Hey there, FarmBoy's podcast viewers. Something historic is coming to Las Vegas on May 24th, 2026. The Enhanced Games bring together elite athletes pushing the limits of human performance. Swimming, track, strength. A new era of competition begins in Las Vegas. Stay tuned and don't miss what's coming. Hey there, FarmBoy's podcast viewers. I'll be honest with you. I'm a grandfather now. My grandkids call me Poppy. And when those kids show up, they don't want to see an old man sitting in a chair watching TV. They want to play. That's why I started using peptides from Apex Peptides. The difference has been incredible. More energy, better recovery, and I feel younger than I have in years. If you want to feel like yourself again, check out www.apex-peptides and use promo code FarmBoys, all one word, for 20% off. Apex Peptides, feel the difference. Smash that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and like the video. This is a FarmBoys podcast with CEO and co-founder of the Enhanced Games, Maximilian Martin.
So I'm Max, originally from Germany, grew up in Munich, and then started off after college my work life as an analyst at Morgan Stanley, where I worked in their technology investment banking team for roughly 2 years before I founded, together with Christian Angermayer, the third founder of Enhanced, a Bitcoin mining firm. We did that in 2020, and it was in the middle of COVID, and we raised, at the time, a large chunk of equity, even larger chunk of debt, to purchase, at the time, the largest order of Bitcoin mining equipment ever globally to that date. And so we built out data centers throughout the US, Canada, Norway, Sweden, Netherlands, and Germany. And we're running that quite happily and successfully until like a year and a half later, we sold the company to a global data center business, which I then became part of their management team until I left them to work on other projects again, which one was Enhanced. And so since very early days, 2.5 years, almost 3 years ago, Aaron D'Souza, who you had on, Christian Angermayer, third founder, and myself, we got together and started Enhanced. Aaron really had the original idea of revolutionizing sports, and then got Christian and myself very excited about joining him in that. Christian and I, we know each other for a long time. We actually know each other since my university days, when I had my first startup that I was trying to get him to invest into. It didn't end up happening, but then we founded the Bitcoin mining business together, and now are in it together for Enhanced. And it's really been the greatest pleasure of my life working for Enhanced. Enhanced is a company that I fundamentally believe will change millions of people's lives for the better. And why am I so obsessive of that thought, or like so believing in it? Because it's changed my life. When I first started getting Enhanced a bit more than 2 years ago, it's really been the best thing that I've ever done to my body. I've since then, seen my family get Enhanced, friends of mine get Enhanced, their families get Enhanced, athletes of ours get Enhanced, and just saw, the benefits that supervised enhancements can have on people in their lives. And this is something that we don't want to be privy for just a few selected ones that, have access to concierge doctors, etc., but that we want to make accessible to the broader public. And we've done so by launching our own consumer business very recently that provides products that gives people the opportunity to live Enhanced. And on top of that, being able to, operate a sporting league, have a sporting team that we run, the Enhanced Performance team, and change athletes' lives too, it's just something that's very exciting to me as an individual.
So when you say that you started enhancing, can you be more specific? What do you mean by that? Because if you look at your product site, there's some TRT, there's some peptides, that kind of thing. Is that what you're talking about, or is it even deeper?
No, for me, it's really that kind of layer. I think you can go, if you think about enhancements, you can go as deep as you'd like. We know of some people that spend, $2 million a year on their enhancement protocols. For me, it was much simpler than that. For me, it was, what I mean by enhancing is I started taking substances that I wouldn't be allowed to take in professional sports. That's what I normally consider to be enhancements. Or otherwise, I would say, is my phone already an enhancement for me? Yeah, I never leave it off. It's never more than, a yard away from me. So is that, or does it first need to get implanted into my hand before I call it a real enhancement? So the line is different for everyone. For me, it's what would be banned in professional sports. And what I've taken is a protocol of a variety of substances, not that many actually, just one in the beginning, and then later on a couple of them more, to just help me with what I needed for myself. And so it was really targeted, very similar to what we're doing with athletes. Who am I as an individual? What's my base blood work like? And then what kind of objectives do I have that I try to become better at through the enhancements? And so I've worked with one of the doctors that sits on our medical commission, who has this clinic in London. He's been enhancing, every Marvel superhero you can think of, tons of other people, etc. So in great hands there. And it's really transformed my life. What I get out of my body, how I recover, how, sharper I am, is really a testament to that. And I'm super excited about it.
Awesome. So what got you into sports then? You come from a crypto finance background. Has sports always been a part of your life, or is that something new?
Yeah, it's professionally something new. Yeah. Privately, sports has been always very dear to me. I've done a lot of sports when I was a kid growing up, etc. I played a lot of tennis, I did martial arts, and danced a lot throughout all my teenage years. So sports has been very dear to me, but the sports of track, swimming, and weightlifting, the three core sports of Enhanced, have been new to me. But working with athletes from those sports, some of the best coaches in the world of those sports, I wouldn't call them stranger sports for me anymore. I've gotten quite familiar with them, the techniques around it, and really found it very exciting to learn so much about those sports. That's also something that we have as an objective for the Enhanced Games, is to bring those sports that you typically follow, say, once every 4 years for 2 weeks, bring those sports closer to the people. Because why do people love football so much? Why do people love basketball so much, etc.? Yeah. Because they know more about those sports. They know about the techniques, they know about the stats, they know about the players, they know about the coaches. It's just the more you can showcase a sport and what makes that sport great, the more fans you will be able to generate. And the sports of track, swimming, and weightlifting, they're actually quite technical. All three of those sports, they're actually quite complicated, and you need phenomenal technique. It comes to, like, say, swimming, starting, finishing, stroke rates, dive depth, how far the dive is, etc. All of these things impact your race, and that's super exciting. And then putting that together, with like 6-7 athletes with 6-10 wingspans, etc. It's just very exciting to watch. And then the first time I saw, our guys swim, which was last year, James Magnuson and Christian Golomeev in person while being on a pool deck, it's much quicker in real life than it is on TV. So, like, when you want to keep up with these guys, you need to, like, jog to keep up with them in the water. It's not just that you can walk quickly and do some power walking to keep up with them. No, it's like a proper jog, which is exciting. And so seeing the sports in real life has also been changing for me. And then on track, the guys, I raced 2 of our athletes a couple of weeks ago when I was at the training camp. It's just very different in reality than it is on TV, and that's something that's super, super cool.
Something you mentioned, which I think is fantastic, is getting to know the athletes in these they're traditional sports, but the TV era, I guess it'd be non-traditional. So the plan for Enhanced Games are you wanting to do that as a yearly thing, as something that never ends? What's your plan to get people more involved and to put more eyeballs on it?
Yeah, to provide content around it. So the games themselves are going to happen minimum on a yearly basis. We're looking at, in say, the 27-28 season, to instigate another version of the games so that they happen twice a year. But then really it shouldn't be only limited to that. The athletes that have joined us, they want to compete. They're the best of the best. And being the best is measurable by competing. And so we want to create more opportunities for them, say an additional swim, track, and weightlifting meet throughout the years, other opportunities to break records, etc. And really providing a ton of content around that for the people that are our fans, that are excited about watching this. Now, if I look at, many other sports, if I look at players that sit on the bench for some sports, don't play all season long, but the level of celebrityism, or fame they receive, brand partnerships that they receive, doesn't necessarily come from the fact that they're the best players in their sports. I mean, they sit on a bench all season long. It comes from the fact that these sports are, through media, very much elevated, that they get invited to, cool events, galas, etc. They get put in a position where they can be celebrities. For our athletes, both men and women, they've not been in an environment where that was possible in the past. We want to tell, their stories. If I look at some of our athletes, they're beautiful, charismatic, fun to hang out with, built like gods, and like the best of the best in their craft. And then seeing these people, have 5,000 followers on Instagram, 20,000 followers on Instagram, does not, for me, level up with the kind of talent that they are. And so we want to also, depending on how much the athlete wants to be involved, right, give them a platform where they can tell their stories, where the people can learn more about them, what motivates them, what's driving them, why did they join such a provocative new institution like the Enhanced Games instead of sticking to what they've been doing in the past. And that's very exciting for people to watch, and it's great for us to see. We have one of our athletes who's grown his social following over the last year with us absolutely significantly, is exposed to much better brand deals and so many more opportunities, which is such a great enhancement in its own to these athletes too. And so that's what we're excited about.
The athletes then are not per se under contract with Enhance. They're free just to go out and get whatever endorsement deals, whatever brand deals they possibly can.
So we encourage the athletes to do that. They are under contract with us.
Okay.
So especially the members of the Enhanced Performance team. But what does that mean? It means for us giving them everything that we can to to put them in a position where they only need to care about what they love most, the sport. And so what we've done is the athletes in the performance team, they get a salary. So they have a kind of de facto salaried athletes. They have access to the best coaches in the world. They have access to the best nutritionists, physicians, sports psychologists, therapists. We had a training camp. So right now, all the athletes are in Abu Dhabi. We had previously a training camp in Vegas. And there, the way we sorted food was that every athlete gets their individual meals cooked for them based on their calorie, protein, and carb intake every single day. So we're trying to take away everything that the athlete is caring about, needs to worry about, to let them go of all of the mental blockades, that they have from having to worry about such stuff, so that they can only focus on their training. And that is a huge enhancement for many athletes as well. It's not just about the, pharmacological side of it. It's really about everything else too. And so we actually just had a swimmer that we announced is joining us, or who joined us last week. His name is Hunter Armstrong, American swimmer. He's actually choosing not to enhance. It's overall a choice for the athletes, whether they want to enhance or not. You're not required to do it. You're not getting paid more or less if you do it or not. It's just like an optionality for athletes to get enhanced under the highest medical and clinical standards. But Hunter is choosing he doesn't want to do it, but he's still going to benefit from everything else that we put in place for him, which is amazing to see.
Yeah, that's very different, because you said you're paying them a salary, which I'm assuming there's nobody else that does that. They win money if they win their competitions or whatever, right? Or only if they get endorsement deals. That's a real game changer. So when I had Aaron on, he talked about traditional sports being, we'll call it, fundamentally broken. Is this your view as well? Do you think traditional sports are kind of restricting athletes, and you're able to fix that with enhanced games? What's your view?
I think we are providing an alternative option for athletes that I personally believe is more up for the 21st century.
Okay.
I do think so because from science, we know that there's a ton of enhancements that actually help the athlete, not just from a performance perspective, but from a recovery and injury protection perspective as well. And that has massive benefits on the longevity of athletes. Being an athlete on that level is not healthy. You put your body through so much stress, through so much pain, which is why so many athletes, once they get into retirement, struggle a lot based on their body and what they've put themselves through when they were competing at these, highest international stages that you can be competing at. A lot of the enhancements that we see and, working on our athletes are actually the biggest benefits of them on a recovery and injury prevention side. Recovery because the body can sustain more, and on the injury prevention side because the athletes can train harder during the training sessions because their body is less prone to get injured. And then that has a massive benefit on the performance, but it's not about, having everyone look like they want to compete for Mr. Olympia.
Right.
And so that's what I think is great. I think also, that in the way that we do this, we're changing from a testing system at the moment into more traditional sports that is focused on finding out whether an athlete is cheating. What we're doing is we're switching that to a testing system that looks at the athlete's health and whether they're safe to compete. Now, what does that mean is we all, live under the law. And the law and the regulator have approved substances, and that's what you can take. Now, our fundamental belief in that is the law is the law. And why should there be a sporting body that decides on within what is legal under the law an athlete could be taking or not? So, and we know from, so many studies that are being done that a lot of the athletes actually still cheat. It's something, depending on the studies, it's between 30 something to almost 50% of athletes. But the common denominator is that roughly only 1% of athletes get caught while cheating. So how do they get away with it cheating? Is by taking newly developed drugs that are not well researched and by taking additional drugs on top of that to hide what they're taking in the first place. And so that puts their health massively at risk. And that's completely unnecessary because all of the substances that make you perform better, recover quicker, etc. are clinically approved substances that doctors prescribe to patients every single day. And so why not allow the benefits and the safe benefits of those approved substances that we know very well to be a part of sport? We allow it to be part of everything else in life, whether that's top tier executives, whether that's Hollywood superstars, whether that's whomever. Everyone, is getting enhanced. Fun fact, actually, there are studies that show that 70% of orchestra musicians are enhanced.
Wow.
Now, what do they take? Obviously not anabolic steroids, but they take beta blockers to help them with stage fright. Now, we would never sit in an orchestra and be like, hey, did anyone, drug test first violin to see whether they're adhering to the rules or not? No, we want to see them perform at the best of what they can do. And I personally think that science, is the greatest asset we have as people. And so why not what we're doing is we're taking what's happening in the shadows, we're putting it out in the open, we put the right clinical and medical regulatory framework around it so that the people that choose to do it can do it safely.
You brought up a common misconception. You said, not everybody needs to look like Mr. Olympia. What are some of the other misconceptions you think people have about the enhanced games when they just hear about what it is and don't do their own research into it?
Yeah, there's a couple still. One is, for example, that what the athletes are doing is illegal, and that's just outright wrong. There's a clear distinction between what illegal is and how we sometimes use the word illegal in sports. If we talk about something illegal in sports, we say what we mean is against the rules. Now, if I play soccer, and I play the ball with my hand, that's illegal under the soccer rules. Now, it's not illegal under the law. And so that's one thing. The athletes cannot take any substances that are illegal under the law. They can only take substances that are approved by the regulator under a doctor's supervision. And on top, the athletes need to pass the medical and medical screenings as we lead up into the games. So it's actually extremely safe. And that's the second thing, that athletes are, required to do things that are unsafe because there's some monetary incentive around it. It's actually not true as well. The monetary incentive is not there where we say, hey, if you take more substances, you're going to get paid more. As I said before, it's an optionality that we provide to the athletes. If they want to get enhanced, they can do it safely. But it's not something that we additionally reward. And lastly, I think it's that it's, completely against ethos and completely against what we should be teaching kids, etc. And I don't think that is the case, because what we're doing is we're pushing for transparency and we're pushing for supervised and regulated utilization of the performance enhancements. Where I often compare this with alcohol. So for example, think about alcohol, right? Legal substance, you're 21, you can go buy it. Now, if I have a couple of beers, I'm going to have a good time and really enjoy it with my friends. If you give me 2 bottles of whiskey straight, I'm going to die. Now, that is not the alcohol's fault, but it's my fault for abusing it in an unsupervised way. And what's currently happening is an abuse and an unsupervised use of performance enhancements in order to circumvent testing and get away with cheating. That is everything we can stand against for. What we stand for is a supervised and regulated use of it under the highest clinical and medical standards with testing mechanisms in place to make sure that the athletes that choose to do it are doing it as safely as possible. And so that's really also what I think we should be teaching to, the younger generations. It's about, hey, these things exist. What is important is that you don't abuse them. This is not something you should be ordering online and trying by yourself at home. This is for supervised use only, and only under the supervision, proper clinical and medical supervision. This can be done safely, but then if it's done so, have great benefits for you.
So you bring up child, the kid issue. Do you think that's the biggest criticism then towards enhanced games that critics hit you with, or whoever? What do you think the biggest criticism is?
I think it's a mixture of all of them.
Okay.
I think it's a mixture of all of them. I think being someone to look up to for the younger generation, I think is wrong, because if you look at, for example, social media, right? So many things that we see on social media is fake, whether that's people in great shape, whether that's people that do extraordinary things. Now it's getting even worse with, the improvements of AI that we can see every single day. What we do by not telling people that, hey, as a young guy, right, as a 15, 16-year-old, when you start going to the gym for the first time, start drinking protein shakes, etc., and you look up to people online, you think you can achieve that naturally, and you're always trying to achieve that, but you can never, because it's not naturally. There's actually the worst example that we can do, and that really putting wrong messages into younger people's heads. So it's really about the education around the space and about, pushing for it to be supervised. So I think it's a mix of all of those things. But beyond the critics, we actually see massive support for the work that we're doing. We've actually done a survey last year where we surveyed more than 1,000 people on whether they think, first of all, the question was, we explained in a short paragraph what we're doing as a company? And 2/3 of the people thought this was great. They thought this was great, that athletes can utilize certain things, certain substances that we as everyday people can utilize, but the athletes are not allowed to help them recover quicker, etc. We had athletes, that had shoulder surgeries when we were swimmers that couldn't take the recommended medications from the doctors because it would have prohibited them from being an elite athlete. And so it's crazy. So 2/3 of the people actually like this. And a lot of the people as well, I think more than 70%, would want to purchase product as well from the same manufacturer that the athletes are getting enhanced with. And that's what is really exciting, because the athletes are authentic and very genuine. And the benefits of enhancements can be really measured. All of the sports that we have objectively observable performance. There's no judges involved. It's all about measured data. And seeing the athletes being fitter than they've ever been, healthier than they've ever been, performing better than they ever have, is very exciting and inspiring. for people to consider, hey, is this something I should be doing myself? And so that's really cool. And if you then look at, how much, just think about this, in 25 years from now, do you think we're going to be as a society more enhanced or less enhanced?
I would hope more.
Yeah, so do most of the people. And so someone needs to be the first one to go out there, do some change, establish a process under which it can be safe, because only can an industry or something really flourish if there's real regulation around it. And that's what we're putting in place, and that's what we're advocating for.
So what does the medical supervision in enhanced sports look like for you guys right now? You explained part of it, and then how would that translate over traditional sports? Would it be able to be the same in, say, like the NBA, the NFL, MLB, that kind of thing?
Yeah, this is a great question. I love that question. So the way that it currently works at Enhanced, we have actually 2 independent commissions that support us on this. So the first one is the Independent Medical Commission, where we have doctors from various different fields. The chair, just to give you like a taste of the quality of people that sit on this commission, the chair of the commission is a German cardiologist, Professor Dr. Guido Piles. He's been a cardiologist of, maybe at Manchester United, a big soccer club in Europe, like one of the biggest. He's been a lead cardiac risk advisor to the United Kingdom government during COVID, and he's been the one who wrote the cardiology guidelines for FIFA, which operates the World Cup for soccer. So there's maybe 4 or 5 cardiologists on his level worldwide. Scientific Commission, very similar. I'll tell you what these do in a second. But for example, members of our Scientific Commission of some of the best scientists in the world, with the person who's responsible for genomics at Harvard, George Church, who's also a co-founder of Colossal Biosciences, the company that brings the mammoth back. Really, really exciting people. What we've set up with them together. So how does it work? We've set up the Enhanced Games medical program. As part of the medical program, what we've done is we set up a study environment together with the Abu Dhabi health regulator and the biggest hospital in the United Arab Emirates to create a clinical environment where the athletes can get enhanced under the highest clinical and medical standards that there are. And we're working there together with a government agency, which is incredible for us to be doing that, to make sure that everyone chooses to do it, it's doing it under the highest standards. Now, what the athletes needs to do though, in terms of being admitted to the games, they need to pass the medical screenings. And in those medical screenings, what we do is we look at a variety of different biomarkers and a variety of, we scan the heart, we scan the brain, other organs, we look at the musculoskeletal analysis, etc., of the athletes to make sure that they're healthy and safe to compete. Safe to compete goes even as if an athlete has a flu or a severe illness, they wouldn't be safe to compete. And so that would also exclude them from participating. So it's really centered around whether the athlete is healthy and safe to compete. Is this something that you could apply in other sports? Absolutely. Do I hope that that's going to be the case in 10, 15 years from now? Absolutely, I do hope that. Because think about, sports stars like LeBron James. If they could get enhanced and could play, for a couple of years longer, they could do longer for what they love. Their fans could see their favorite player play longer. And the commercial partners would also benefit, because mostly when people retire is when they're at the peak of their commercial value. Everybody wins. And so that's why I really hope that we'll see other sporting, bodies think about, over time, they will want to see how this plays out, whether it's really as safe as we say it is, etc. So we'll have patience, but I think it will be very exciting for other sports to do so too.
Has any other sport bodies reached out to you and said, hey, we're watching, we're interested, we're not going to do it yet, but we're watching, and that's something we're considering? So
considering is maybe a stretch at this point, but we've had people from various anti-doping agencies speak to us, from various national governing bodies speak to us, and what you see mostly in the press is them being very, against everything that we do.
Yeah.
Now, they have a lot of members, though, that actually think this is great, that are aware of a massive cheating problem that's completely gotten out of hand. They are aware of athletes, doing things to their bodies that help them in the short run, but really hurt them in the medium term already. And they know that science is advancing, and we're holding back science, the greatest asset we have as people. We're holding back that greatest asset to become an integral part of sports. And so many people actually, even though their overall organizations are very much against it, the people that work in those organizations, see the benefits.
You believe that current anti-doping systems are failing. Is that fair to say?
I think that it comes out every now and then that athletes have been cheating, and athletes in hindsight get tested positive, and that there's been countless stories where we've seen that it doesn't work as well as we would like it to work. I think the idea of everyone adhering to a certain rule set is great, but we just know with every sporting competition we have, even throughout the other sports, that people are choosing to cheat regardless. And studies show that we're unfortunately not able to catch all of the cheaters, so it's not great. But I also see the challenges that they're facing. Athletes and scientists are far ahead of that. They try to get one edge over. So we're just I'm not here to criticize. Everyone has
Sure.
their own challenges. We have challenges that we're dealing with.
Sure.
But what we're here to do is to provide an alternative platform. Whether people think that's better or worse, it's up for them. But we're providing a platform that we know that thousands of people love already and support. And these are the people that we're building this for.
Why do you think it's more about the optics for a lot of these sports associations or even the anti-doping agencies than it is about reality? It seems like they're putting athletes' health at risk by worrying more about the optics than what's really going on.
I think it has to do as well with a change in mind. If I look at the people that work in institutions like this, they've spent their whole professional careers in an environment where this was frowned upon. Everything they were doing was against doing that. And it's sometimes just difficult to change a different, perspective on things. I think what we've seen as well in the support of Enhanced as an organization and the business that we're doing, the younger the people are, the more they are supportive of what we're doing. If you talk to, people that have already gone through 20, athletics competitions or Olympic Games or whatever, they are much more hammered down than people who've just seen the Olympics for 3-4 times and are more, closer to information, closer to scientific advancements. If you see it, people taking care of their health at a much younger age, people drink less at the moment, they smoke less, they take care of their health younger, are all very positive developments when it comes to personal and also societal health. And these people are more prone to, seeing the benefits of science on sports as well.
I'm going to use this term, when Enhanced Game succeeds. How do you think that's going to change the Olympics? Not just traditional sports, but let's focus on the Olympics.
I think that's a good question. I don't ask myself that a lot because it's not my objective to change the Olympics.
Sure.
We're doing something very different. But what I would say is I hope that, people can see that the athletes that join the Enhanced Games are, safe, taken care of, doing something that is good for their health, that we're inspiring people to pay athletes more. So what we've seen already, in Paris for 2024, World Athletics, the governing body of track and field, has said for the first time that they're going to pay every gold medalist $50,000. Now, before that wasn't the case. We're coming out, we're paying the winners of each event $250,000. Is it accreditable to exclusively us that they went out and did this? Probably not. Did we maybe play a role in traditional organizations noticing that they have to pay athletes? Maybe. So whatever it is that we can do through the work that we're doing to inspire others to do more for athletes, the people on which these media and sporting empires are built, like in every other sports, like in football, etc. If we can replicate that and inspire people to do more for the athletes in other sports, then we're very happy.
What do you think is the absolute ultimate goal of the Enhanced Games and the company where you sell your products? Is it to enhance everyday people? Is it to really focus on athletes? What do you think the ultimate goal here is?
The ultimate goal for an organization is to change millions of people's lives for the better by giving them access to enhancements. And what we do, the work that we do with sports is we utilize, one of the most exciting things we have, emotionally capturing sports competition, to showcase to people the benefits of enhancements. And the idea is that people see this and take away from this, hey, I've just seen a 35-year-old athlete who is, based on his biomarker data, healthier than they've ever been before, beating their personal best from when they were in their prime. Is this something that I can consider for myself? Is this something that only helps an athlete break their personal best or their world record? Or can this help a 25-year-old woman that's training for a marathon? Or a 65-year-old guy who's looking to take his grandkids to the playground and play with them? That's what we're after. That's what we want to open people's eyes for. Help them forget about the stigmas and the misconceptions that they've had about enhancements and consider it for themselves and what positive impact that can have on their lives. And then we look to give people what it means to be enhanced. We said this before, it's very subjective. For some people, it might be, just taking multivitamins and doing cold plunges and sauna. For others, it might be injectable hormone therapy. Where you sit on that spectrum of what it means to be enhanced is entirely up to you. But what we're building is a product suite that covers as much of that spectrum as possible, so that when people get inspired, hey, this is something I can be doing, that they can come to us as their source of, information, knowledge, and product to get enhanced themselves.
So it sounds like the Enhanced Games and what you're doing is really more about human evolution than it is even sports, right?
Sports is an integral part of it, but yes, there will be many more areas of life that we're impacting other than sports.
How are you guys going to make money from the enhanced games? I know you have your product, but how else will you make money? I know you have some big heavy hitters that support you, right? You've got some deep pockets there for support, but ultimately, how are you going to make money?
Yeah, it's a good question. So on the sporting side, the traditional revenues that you see from sporting organizations is sponsorships, media rights, and ticket sales. Now, I'll start with ticket sales first. We're not selling tickets. We're giving away the tickets for free. And so we do not want to like monetize heavily on that. We want to inspire people to come to the games, distribute it to their audiences, and have the biggest impact possible. The second one is media rights. We're not selling out. Excuse me. We're not selling our media rights in the first year. Why are we doing that? To make watching the games as accessible as it is, or like as possible, right? Instead of signing up to some streamer, paying them $10 a month to watch the games, or being restricted to only a certain geographies, we're putting the games on YouTube so everyone can watch it for free. Now, how are we making money? You asked me, and I'm telling you what we're not making money with, is partnerships with our sponsors, which are companies that share the same vision of a better future for people through technological and scientific advancement. And so this is really one thing, how we're monetizing on the games. We will probably consider, doing media rights deals in the future, but we'll see how that develops. But it's really through like our brand partners that are coming in and sponsoring us that will make money on the sporting side. Through the consumer business, it's just a standard consumer business, right? We have different products that we offer that we're selling through which we're making money.
I love that you say it's free. That's going to be huge and hopefully bring in a lot of people in and eyeballs and whatnot. A more personal question. If you could, do you think you would personally compete in the enhanced games, and what sport would you choose?
That's a great question that I've never asked myself because I'm far away from that. Look, I love all the sports. I've started to get swimming knowing the best in the beginning because we hosted our first attempt to break a world record actually last year already with two swimmers.
Yeah.
James Magnuson, Australian swimmer, and Christian Golomiev, Greek swimmer. Christian broke the world record. So like swimming was the one that I was exposed to from the beginning on the most. So I naturally like it a lot. But then, meeting our athletes that run track, meeting our athletes that lift weights. These sports are just as exciting. So I've done, training sessions with each sport of those. Some of the greatest but most humbling experience of my life. So I don't know. I love them all. I don't have the build for any of them. I don't have the capabilities for any of them. But I'm just excited to be able to watch these guys and girls.
Yeah. What sport do you think benefits the most from being enhanced?
It's a difficult question. So where my head's going at, is it the ones that, is it the sprints? Is it the endurance sports? Is it the technical sports?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the sports that benefit a lot is that are very physical because it helps you just improve your body and your health so much. So I'm thinking, for example, think about Formula One as a sport. Is it going to be, it's very, very physical. But it's so much about the mind and hand-eye coordination and foot coordination. Or for example, ping pong. A lot of players that play ping pong are actually enhanced. Now what do they take? Also not anabolic steroids, but like cognitive enhancements, Adderall, modafinil, to help them with reaction times, focus. So anything that you do, you can enhance. I think that the ones that are physically most enduring, say for example, the sprints are very, very heavy. The lifters are very heavy on the sport, but then also more endurance sports, think about marathons, think about, long bike rides, triathlons, etc. Those are the ones that will see a lot of improvements as well. But generally anything you do in life, it can improve through enhancements.